Welcome to those of you watching and to the candidates. Good evening. My name is Michelle Thorcell, and I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of Glen, Ellyn. On behalf of the 6 local league chapters hosting tonight's event, I thank you for joining us for the US Congressional District 6 Republican Candidate Forum. The format is virtual, and we ask that candidates and viewers eliminate distractions and give the forum their undivided attention as they would for an in-person event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League works to increase understanding of the major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Our moderator this evening is Patty Lackman. Patty has been a member of the League of Women Voters since 2002, serving as Vice President and President, as well as Voter Service Chair of the League of Women Voters of Batavia. In 2010, the Leagues of Batavia and Geneva St. Charles merged to become the League of Women Voters of Central Kane County. Patty was subsequently elected as one of the 3 vice presidents, a position she currently holds along with the position of Voter Services Chair. Welcome, Patty, and thank you for moderating this forum.
Good evening. It's an honor for me to be moderating tonight's candidate forum. All Republican candidates were invited to participate tonight. 5 of the 6 are here this evening. Candidate Casper declined to participate and did not meet the deadline for the signed League of Women Voters material for participation. I'd like to begin by reviewing some of the League ground rules for candidate forums. All candidates attending tonight have signed and returned the ground rules by the deadline of April 6th. These rules specify the format, time limits, and other rules related to the conduct of this forum. I will be responsible for enforcing these rules. The candidates will begin in alphabetical order with their opening statements. They will alternate the order in which they answer questions. And after the question portion of the forum, each candidate will give a closing statement. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for their opening statement, 1 minute to respond to each question, unless I specify otherwise, and 1 minute to make a closing statement. The responses will be timed, as you will see on the screen. The questions have been gathered in advance from the public. A panel of experienced members of the League of Women Voters have reviewed the questions submitted and carefully screened for questions for appropriateness for this particular office and to avoid duplications for today's event. The format tonight is a candidate forum, not a debate format. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for the accuracy of statements made by the candidates. It is the responsibility of the public, news media, opposing candidates et al. To fact check statements made by the candidates if deemed necessary. This forum is held as a service to the voters so that they can hear directly from the candidates regarding their views on key issues and qualifications. To be of best service to the voters, candidates' responses are to reflect their own views and opinions and refrain from commenting on the views of other candidates. The event today is being recorded. The League claims copyright ownership of any recording or transcript produced of the forum. The forum will be posted in its entirety on 6 host League websites, social media platforms, and the Illinois Voter Guide. Any other use of the forum recording requires the express written approval of the League. Audio and video must be broadcast unedited and in its entirety except by media events. Finally, I want to emphasize how grateful we are for these candidates who are not only willing to serve in office, but who agreed to come here this evening. Candidates, please start your video. Mr. Grasso, candidate Grasso?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on the video.
Okay, we have two, I see.
Yeah, I noticed that was up twice, but
okay.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Today's first candidate is Nikki Conforti. Candidate Conforti, your opening statement, please.
I'm Nikki Conforti. I'm not a politician nor an elected official. I'm just one of us, and I'm willing to go to Washington, D.C. and fight for conservative values. I'm a single mom. I'm a lifelong resident of Chicago and the daughter of an immigrant. And I come from a long line of vets, although I'm not a vet myself, but I definitely have the fight in me. And I believe I'm uniquely qualified to represent us in Washington, D.C. I have extensive experience in areas directly related to federal policy, and I'll be able to understand legislation better. I'm an energy consultant. I'm an MBA in healthcare. I work to deliver healthcare. I owned a small business. I worked in the job market, and I'm an undergraduate with an economics degree. And I have written corporate policy. So I know how to write policy that is meaningful for all segments of the population. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Conforti. Candidate Grasso, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I'm Gary Grasso, the mayor of Burr Ridge. I've been the mayor of Burr Ridge for 10 years. I was also 6 years on the DuPage County Board, where I spent 4 years as a 911 chairman, building 2 state-of-the-art call centers that saved the taxpayers of DuPage County over $9 million annually. I'm also the only candidate that has experience on the Board of Health. I was 12 years on the DuPage County Board of Health. I was the first in my family ever to get an education. I've lived the American dream. I went to Georgetown University, and then 4 years at night while I worked, I went to law school. I've been married for 43 years to my wife, Janet, and we have 6 children and 6 adorable grandchildren. Others are going to say what they will do. I'm going to tell you I've done it. I have experienced running police forces, providing for healthcare, and managing a village, the county, and DuPage 911 board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Candidate Cruz, I apologize, I skipped you. Candidate Cruz, you're up next.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. Hi, my name is Rob Cruz. I'm a father, a husband, a dad, a cancer survivor, and an advocate. In 2020, I worked to help defeat the progressive tax hike. I worked on that campaign. I had a lot of fun and learned a lot about what I want to do there. And my message is very simple. I want to put the safety and education of our children first. If we do not get behind the future of our children and quit allowing what's happening in Washington, D.C. to affect our children and our safety, we will further go into decline. Outside of that, that's why I'm running. I'm a proponent of pro-life as well. So thank you for having me today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Candidate Cruz. Candidate Pekow.
Hi, thank you. I'm Keith Pekow. I was adopted and raised in Orland Park, where I live with my wife and raised our 3 children. We also have a granddaughter. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, and I have a degree in aerospace engineering from Arizona State and an MBA from Duke University, where I graduated as a Fuqua Scholar. I'm a veteran of the US Air Force, where I was an instructor Wizzo and an F-15E. I also was a business consultant and owned 2 small businesses before becoming mayor of Orland Park in 2017. Betty and I feel blessed to have raised our family in the greatest country in history. However, it seems that now, more than ever, America is under attack from radical left politicians like Sean Casten, Marie Newman, and Joe Biden. Our Constitution, the very foundation of our republic, is being ignored on many fronts. This is why I am running for Congress in the Illinois 6th Congressional District. I will fight the radical progressives in DC and vote for common sense solutions to help Illinois families, just like I have as mayor of Orland Park.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
I'm Catherine O'Shea. I'm 57, a mother of 3. I've always volunteered and have plenty of experience working with the towns through my business, O'Shea Realty. I've been in the real estate industry for 33 years. I started my business in 2014. I've worked for big corporations, so I understand all about that. working in real estate, in the real estate industry, you do work with attorneys, city employees, city inspectors, zoning, surveyors. So I've been around all of that for 33 years. I'm a skilled negotiator. And that is what you do in Congress. You have to be able to persuade the other party to join you. My also experience was 6 years on the trustee of Worth Township trustee of schools. And that was not a paid position. It was an elected position, unpaid. I've also been on the legislative committee for the Chamber of Commerce in Oak Lawn, always fighting for the businesses to stay open, fighting for the people, fighting for their property rights. As a matter of fact, there's a town right now trying to do.
Thank you, candidate O'Shea. And now
a home rule, which I'm fighting against, and educating the public against that.
And now we'll go with question 1. And we'll start with candidate Cruz for this. Are you in favor of campaign finance reform? If so, how would you implement it over the next 5-year period?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. One of the 2 things I think I would get rid of or advocate to get rid of is getting rid of the 501c4s and getting rid of these super PACs. That's where people hide their money, and they come from places like George Soros and other high net worth individuals who are messing around with our democracy. In addition to that, I would advocate for legislation for elected officials not be able to trade stocks. We're seeing that, from 2020 on, a lot of different individuals are getting rich off of tragedy. It's even happening here, and one of our opponents on the Democratic side is doing it as well. So those are 2 things that I think I would be very strongly advocating for were I the District 6 rep.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. Yes, we need campaign reform. Running in this election, you have to spend more time trying to raise money with the limits that have been imposed by Washington. It's unfair to candidates such as myself, and it favors the incumbents like Sean Casten and Marie Newman. We're spending our time trying to meet limits, trying to ask people to put in personal funds, not corporate funds, and as a result, we're spending much too much time trying to raise money. The law also doesn't take into consideration the different media markets around America. It's the same rules for South Dakota as it is for Chicago. And the media markets are so expensive here that the candidates cannot get their message out because of the campaign limits here. So I would definitely strongly work to get campaign finance reform.
Thank you. Candidate Pico.
Yes, the left continually says corporations are controlling elections, yet every candidate in this forum knows that by law, corporations cannot donate to a congressional race. However, unions can donate. For example, the operating engineers donated $10,000 to both Gary Grasso and to Sean Casten. This, while individuals are limited to $2,900 per election cycle. In my last election for mayor, my opponent spent nearly $500,000 with almost $300,000 coming from unions. Yet I still won. The point is, this money from the Democratic machine can be overcome by running a good campaign with grassroots support. I am proof, having beat the Chicago Democratic machine in both of my elections. I have talked to thousands of voters, and not a single one has ever brought up campaign finance reform. They talk about good government and fiscal responsibility. That's what I did as mayor. I lowered my pay 70%, eliminated elected official pensions, and instituted term limits so that I cannot be a 4-term mayor. I also reduced property tax rates by 30%, operational spending by 14%, and debt by over $50 million.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
And absolutely get rid of the super PACs as well. That shouldn't be allowed. What we're seeing now anyway, the money, it seems to be buying elections, and it shouldn't be. It wasn't set up that way. We should let the people decide to vote. And what's happening now is people are saying, well, I would vote for so-and-so, but I don't think they have the money to beat them. We have to stop that. It's got to be what's best for the country, who's best to fill that seat needs to be there. So absolutely, we definitely need reform.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Yes, one thing I would support is improving transparency into dark money. I would work to add to the financial disclosures in a way that would shed light on funding intended to influence elections. Campaign contributions have been ruled as a form of free speech by the Supreme Court. So as a result of that, we're somewhat limited in what we can do. But I definitely support limiting government involvement. I do not support government-funded campaigns, and political speech in general should be protected. Even on the internet, people should be able to exercise their right to support who they choose, both vocally and financially.
Thank you. Question 2, and we'll start with candidate Grasso on this one. Do you support the US government's continued funding of Ukraine's defense against Russia? And what should the US do to address the increase of authoritarianism across the globe? You get 2 minutes for this one.
Thank you. Yes, 100% we should be supporting the Ukraine. I've been wearing this pin since the outbreak of the war and Putin's illegal invasion. We should do everything within our power in working with NATO and our own forces to bring as much military aid, food, supplies, and shelters to help the Ukrainians defeat Putin and his invasion. It is our moral and it's in our best interest duty to do this. As to authoritarianism and what's happening in the world, there are 4 countries that really are against us. Those 4 countries are Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. We should coordinate continuous economic pressure on Russia, Iran, and North Korea to weaken their ability to influence and extend their political reach. And we should disentangle ourselves from China. We have to get to be energy independent. We were energy independent under President Trump just a year ago, and we've lost that. We are globalizing our economy so that we are becoming weak. And these nations are sensing that, and they are threatening our economic ways and our standard of living. I've lived the American dream here, and I'm going to Congress to fight for that American dream and our ways of life. And those 4 countries are challenging us all around the world, and we have to resist. One of the ways to show it right now is to support Ukraine and continue to support Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pekow.
Thank you. I served in the Air Force, including 1,500 flight hours, 3 deployments to Southwest Asia, 45 combat sorties, and 150 combat hours over Southern Iraq. So I know what is at stake. I'm the only candidate in the race on either side that knows what it's like to serve in our military and what war is like. We need to do everything in our power to protect our interests. Supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian people are in our interests. Everything that we do in America regarding our military has to be something that is of strategic importance to the US. We also must acknowledge that by far the biggest strategic threats to the United States are China and Russia. Until this is acknowledged, the United States will not be able to meet that threat. The United States is the greatest force for good in the history of the planet, and historically, we've been able to accomplish this by acting from a position of strength. Every time we have weakened our position globally in the last 120 years, we have witnessed more worldwide unrest. Historically, the 3 arms of foreign policy and national security are diplomacy, economic power, and military power. I believe that today, a 4th is energy policy. Recent events have shown why it's critical to our national security and interests to focus on being energy independent. I've been chairman of Illinois Vets for Energy from 2008 to 2018, where we lobbied Congress and Senate on this very issue. And part of our entire argument was that energy security equals national security. I did this long before I decided to run for Congress. And the reason we were doing this is because we recognized that if we were able to provide liquefied natural gas and oil to Europe, we would take Russia's stranglehold over European countries off the table, and they would not be able to do something like they did in Crimea, and they've done again. So it's critical that we're energy independent and that we continue to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people and Europe.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
Well, I think there's a lot we don't know, and we're not going to know until we're actually in office. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that we don't know. There's information that's classified. I do believe in supporting Ukraine, but at a distance. We have to be careful. We have to be strategic. But definitely help them in ways that we can without hurting our country. We have to take care of the people in our country first. We have to close our borders. Our borders are open. More and more people are coming in. We have to take care of those people, obviously. And so we can't take care of the world. And as far as authoritarianism, I think America has right now, and I love our country and always will, but that's why I'm stepping in to save it. Because they're weakening. The administration now is weakening our country, and I think they would have a lot of nerve trying to give someone else advice on trying to not be authoritarian when they're just pushing down mandates left and right.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Yes, I think we should have done more sooner to support Ukraine. If we would have had done that, the U.S. would have presented itself as the leader that it truly is and should be. The U.S. needs to be a beacon of freedom and democracy. Authoritarianism despises free speech and the free exchange of ideas, and we must do everything within our power to preserve and promote it, even though we may not agree with the ideas put forth. Free speech is crucial to our way of life. This new disinformation council that is now being implemented by the Department of Homeland Security is in direct opposition of this. It works to monitor the exchange of ideas. The good news is the Senate today put forth a bill to dissolve it, and that's a good thing. We need to combat authoritarianism with free speech, and we need to do it right here at home.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
Yes, thank you. I do believe that we have a humanitarian responsibility to help the people of Ukraine, but I caution getting involved in a proxy war with the Russians. I don't believe it's in our best interest, especially after we've spent several $1 trillion from 2020's COVID relief packages, infrastructure bills. If this was a business, we would be running out of capital real soon. So, we've already approved $13 billion in aid with a $33 billion request. That's already at the average we spend on an annual basis fighting our own wars in Afghanistan, which totaled $816 billion. All of that money ends up on Main Street's tab. We all have to pay for that. And that's something I think right now a lot of us are wondering where some of our next paychecks are going to come from. From as far as the authoritarianism, I think it's from the art of war, you want to cut off your biggest rivals, enemies at their supply chains. We've allowed the energy sector to be overrun by the Russian people. The Europeans have to do business with them. They have to work and sell their oils and stuff of that nature with them, their natural gases. We have to step back in and have a fair trade system, not a free trade.
Thank you. Question 3, and we will start with candidate Pekow. How do you foresee the recently signed Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act specifically impacting District 6?
Thank you. This act was passed almost 6 months ago, and as of today, mayors such as myself have been kept in the dark about infrastructure investments in our community. There's a complete lack of transparency at the federal and state level as to how the money is spent and what will be invested in our community. For example, the 143rd Street widening project is a project that since I've been mayor has been the Southwest Conference of Mayors' #1 priority project, and IDOT held the initial construction meeting in 2014. To date, it's still not funded. Another example is the CREATE project's 75th Street Corridor Improvement Project. The first 2 of 4 phases were funded under the Trump administration. Why not fund the remainder of the project? Other projects include the Metro Heritage Corridor project and stormwater projects like 63rd Street from Cass to Route 83 in DuPage County. My fear is that the radical left will handle this in the same manner as ARPA and shortchange the residents of the 6th District to pour money into failing, mismanaged cities. As your congressman, I will make sure that the 6th district receives the fair share that it deserves.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unkept promises out there with the administration. There's in DC, they're doing a lot of promises. They've been doing that anyway. Even when I was on the trustee of schools, there's money that's owed to the schools. But now, of course, there's all these ESSER funds and all that they're mismanaging. We need more accountability, and people need to practice what they preach. We need to be role models, and we need to hold people accountable, and show up at these meetings. Show up at your town meetings and express what you're looking for and what you need, and make them accountable, and they will. It's sad that enough people don't do that. I think there's power in numbers, and if more people did, things would get done because they'd be forced to pony up.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Thank you. Unlike other funding bills, this Infrastructure Act will fund the states, and they are to distribute the money. As your congresswoman, it will be critical for me to stay plugged into the people of my district and the General Assembly to be ensure they're in communication and that my district gets its fair share. Projects that I would like to see addressed in my district would be upgrades to our water lines. For one, Chicago has used lead pipes to transport its water for decades, and they need to be replaced. This is critical to the health of our community. Additionally, there are stormwater flooding situations across the district that could be addressed, even some right here in Glen Ellyn where I live. Of course, there are the typical bridge and road repairs that can be done, especially some of those that are located in the south end of the district, right along 294. Thank you.
Candidate Cruz.
So after speaking to some sitting congressmen today and asking about the inside about this bill, it was explained to me that roughly 80% of this bill is traditional infrastructure. Of that 80%, 20 to 25% of it's in transit, passenger and freight. The one thing I found alarming is 50% of this bill is deficit spending, and they're accounting for this with user fees on trains and airports. I'm not sure how sustainable that could be. The other 50% is leftover offset funds from COVID. Being on the school board, we kind of, you get discretion with that. I think the one real glaring need that is, especially where I live in the Southwest, is we have a storm drainage problem. Today was a perfect example. I was joking with the moderators before we got on that it was flooding in the streets. I thought Noah was going to come down the street myself today. And there's nowhere for this water to go. People have been asking for this since I moved here 10 years ago, and it still hasn't been addressed. And that is something I will promise to address the first day I get in the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. As you can see from the answers of the previous 4 candidates, nobody's really sure what is in this bill. All we know is that $1 trillion was spent, causing inflation in our nation. We don't know, it's supposed to address roads, bridges, trains, and water. And no one can explain exactly where that's going. It's the job of a congressman to make sure fair share of that money comes here to the 6th district. As someone who has worked with the government to get, for example, stormwater projects in Burr Ridge, we've had culvert issues and drainage issues. And this is an opportunity to make sure you're getting the money, not allow it to inflate our economy. There is so much pork and extras in this bill that it really submerges the true intent to address our roads, bridges, trains, and water. And I will make sure we know where that money is going and that it goes to infrastructure.
Thank you. Question 4, and we'll start with candidate O'Shea. Describe your ideal healthcare plan for the country.
Well, there's no one size fits all, but the most vulnerable, which are the unborn children and the elderly. I would like for the elderly to be able to get on even their adult children's policy. If somebody has a policy at work, they can stay on it. For the Obamacare, of course, that was nothing but a disaster for people. But the elderly are struggling. They've worked all their lives. And I think it's important that if the adult children can put them on their policy, that would be helpful. I'm looking at the timer here. And as far as the unborn, we have to help the mothers that are struggling and sometimes making the wrong decisions they regret later. So we need to help them.
Candidate Conforti.
Well, the Accountable Care Act was well-intentioned. It was flawed. Within the first year, most of the insurers pulled out because it was unsustainable. It was flooded with mostly sick people, and there weren't enough healthy people paying into the system to offset it. So it was totally unbalanced. So today it's just a limited platform with little choice and high cost. So in simple terms, it was a failure. So I would work to propose legislation that would correct that. I would vote to repeal the ACA, but not until we have a replacement. I don't want to leave people without coverage, even if it isn't the best. So in my terms, I think an ideal healthcare plan is driven by the fair market forces that are based on capitalism. This will help bring down the cost curve and spur innovation. I would propose expanding products like the PPO and the HMO to include those that are currently needing to turn to the ACA for insurance and make them accessible within those products. Thank you.
Candidate Cruz.
Yeah, this one is something real close to me because being a cancer survivor, I went through the system as a patient. And one of the things that you come out of the system with is, what are you going to do about your prescription drugs? That's a major concern for a lot of people, not just cancer survivors, but anyone with any type of ailments or tragedies. The prior administration, the Trump administration, introduced a program called MFN, which was designed to lower these drug costs. That's something we can start with. The old saying is Rome wasn't built in a day, and our healthcare system won't be revamped in a day. One thing I also want to mention too, that a lot of my friends are in this industry tell me is, it's time to incentivize healthy lifestyles. We went from 30% obesity in 2000 to 42% obesity in 2018, with minority people, Hispanic and Blacks, people that are my family members, in the 50% obesity rate. We need to figure out a plan that incentivizes and rebates those people who are staying healthy, keeping burden off the system until we can figure out what the best way is to go about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. An ideal plan is comprehensive, it's available, and it's affordable. The Obamacare did not meet any of those goals. What we have to do, and I agree with Mr. Cruz here, prescription drugs are really one of the areas where there's been no transparency, there's been no justification for cost, and people are being taken. An ideal healthcare plan will have transparency with prescription drugs. We also need to be sure in such a plan that there are medical costs disclosed upfront before people seek treatment. So I would have a competitive private sector insurance-based program where we can get comprehensive, available, and affordable healthcare. I'm the only candidate that's been on the Board of Health. I've been a mayor, and I've been on the DuPage County Board where we had to do this for all of our employees. Thank you.
Candidate Picow.
Thank you. It is ridiculous to think there is one ideal healthcare plan for the country. The healthcare industry is massive and complex, and there are no silver bullets. Our philosophy needs to change. We've allowed the government, insurance companies, big pharma, and employers to get in between you, the patient, and their caregiver and your caregivers. Government-run healthcare hasn't worked. Does anyone think that Medicare works well without supplements? How about Medicaid or the VA? Market-driven competition with decisions made by patients and their doctors rather than insurance companies and the government will lower costs and improve care. Attempting to institute one healthcare plan or one bill that tries to recreate the whole system is a recipe for disaster. Instead, we should identify the various problems and implement solutions for each problem independently. For something this large and complex, we are better off taking it one bite at a time rather than biting off more than we can chew and choking on it. This allows adjustments to be made when the government inevitably doesn't get something completely right. Instead, allows changes to be made incrementally for a better system.
Thank you. Question 5. Appropriate for today. We'll start with candidate Conforti. What is your position on abortion? Should this be regulated federally or state by state?
I am pro-life with exception, and I believe it should be pushed down to the state. Each state will know its constituency better and be able to make those decisions.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
Yeah, this one is something that gets asked a lot. I tell people I'm living proof of pro-life. My mom's entire family is adopted, 7 kids, 1 male, 6 females. And I would like to see more attention to adoption. I also believe that the federal government should not be involved in this decision. I do think it should be passed down to the states to decide as they see fit so that people can elect officials to do their will.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. I'm pro-life. Janet and I have raised 6 children. We have 6 grandchildren. The Supreme Court leaked opinion. I'm a lawyer. The chief judge said it was a genuine document. I suppose we have to assume the Supreme Court will, in fact, overturn Roe, which is a long time coming. But this is going to be a state-by-state issue. I'd be very, as a congressperson, I would vote against any federal dollars that would go for abortion. If states are going to decide, like apparently Florida and Missouri have, that 15 weeks is acceptable to them, then I guess we'll have to respect that. Illinois will be one of the most wide open states for abortion. And we're going to have that debate here at the state level with our state officials. But I agree that the Supreme Court said that it's not a federal issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pico.
This is an issue for the states and the courts. I am pro-life. I was adopted 7 years before Roe v. Wade. And the most loving act of my life was a 15-year-old girl carrying me to term and giving me up for adoption. The second most loving act were my parents adopting me. My parents were poor. Back then, they could still afford to adopt. That would not be true today, where it is prohibitively expensive for most people to adopt. If elected, I will do everything in my power to make adoptions more affordable and more prevalent so that babies like me can live and parents like mine can have the joys of parenthood. Thank you.
Candidate O'Shea.
I am definitely pro-life. I have 3 children. I actually helped deliver 3 other children of other mothers. I was an EMT, never gave up the real estate business, but I also had to step in when the business slowed down. And I worked at the #1 trauma center at Sinai Hospital in ER. So I saw everything coming and going, and a lot of young girls walking in by themselves, ready to deliver. So definitely, I understand it's going to the states now if this goes through with what was leaked from the Supreme Court. But I am definitely pro-life. Every baby is a blessing. We've got to come together and work out the solutions and make it easier for the mothers.
Thank you. Question 6. What measures do you support to improve and secure voting rights in our country? Candidate Cruz.
I would start with voter ID for everybody. Anyone who mails in a ballot, we've got to see your ID. You need an ID to get a drink. You need an ID to get on an airplane. You need an ID pretty much to do a lot of things travel-wise or other entertainment-wise to exist in this country. I don't understand why we don't have voter ID for the whole country.
Candidate Grasso.
I too would support voter ID for the reasons already stated. There's no excuse to me that someone can vote without showing an ID. I would like to see more supervision over mail-in ballots. and not have third-party interference with any mail-in ballots. And we have to make sure that everyone who is eligible to vote and wants to vote does vote, and that their vote is counted. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pico.
Voting is a state issue, and I support states handling this as they see fit with their constituents. I want, and I think we all want, and certainly all these panelists want, every eligible voter to have easy access to voting, and for every voter to know that their vote is sacred, with only legal US citizens being allowed to vote. I also think we all want every voter to know their vote, and only legitimate votes will be counted. Just like we need IDs for many uses in our daily lives, personally, I believe voting should be one of those activities to restore trust in the voting system. We need to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat, and election integrity should be a bipartisan issue.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
We definitely need to have some changes. Yes, our state legislators need to make those election changes. We have, I would like voter ID for sure. Definitely have it supervised by police officers actually, or hired security, not volunteers or not paid citizens that are watching the polls. And I'd like the voting time for the shortened. I do believe it is too long now. It's more time for corruption. And as far as the mail-in ballots, again, too, with our mailing system, people are having trouble with our postal system. So, but definitely only for the ones that are asking for it, not just randomly giving them to anybody.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Thank you. Yes, every American citizen should have the right to vote, easy access to voting, and every legal vote should be counted. I do support requiring photo ID at the time of voting and 3 forms of ID to register. I also believe that we need to require the states to regularly clean out the voter rolls to ensure that we have proper, and accurate voter rolls. I think we need to return to absentee ballots rather than mail ballots to ensure proper voting.
Thank you. Question 7, starting with candidate Grasso. What steps will you take to reform current immigration policies?
Let's start with enforcing our laws. We have an obvious problem on the southern border. It is imperative to enforce those laws and stop the daily infusion of undocumented and illegal aliens. We have to make it easier for legal immigrants and harder for illegal immigrants. We should continue with Title 42 and make sure that we arm our border patrols with the appropriate tools so they can enforce our laws. There's a crisis on that border. It is definitely a federal situation that has to be addressed, and it is one of the things that I will put a lot of energy towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pico.
Thank you. First and foremost, before we solve any immigration issues, we must stop people from immigrating here illegally. So we must control our borders, whether that's through a physical wall or technology. And also something that's not talked about much is ensuring that people don't overstay their visas. So we need technology in place to make sure that doesn't happen. If and only if we do that first, then we can address the immigration issues that we have here in our laws. And immigration is important to the United States, and we're a nation of immigrants. We need immigration laws, however, that help Americans and America, not that are designed to help people from other countries. We want people to come here who want to be Americans, and we certainly can't fault them for wanting to live in the greatest country on earth. But we certainly need people that can come here and actually contribute to society, not somebody that society contributes to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
We definitely need to change the immigration laws. We definitely need to keep Title 42 and send the illegal immigrants back, keep them on the other side of the border. My grandparents are immigrants from Ireland. They came here legally. My ex-husband is from Ireland, who came here legally. I love America is full of immigrants, and we love all the different cultures, the different, they bring so much to America, which makes it so special. Music, food, fashion, poetry, dance, we love it. And I want to continue that, but on a legal basis.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Yes, any immigration policy needs to start with securing the southern border. We have a crisis on our hands there, and it's not getting a lot of media attention, and it needs to be addressed immediately. I'm a daughter of an immigrant, so I fully support immigration, but legal immigration. I believe the biggest problem with our current immigration policy is it just takes a long time. There are a lot of inefficiencies in the system. We have the visa programs set up, and I think they're all good. There's a variety of them to bring in qualified immigrants, and there are also health restrictions and testing that needs to be done to our immigrant population that comes in legally to protect those American citizens and protect our communities against health, the COVID entry, and drug population and fentanyl and everything that's coming over the southern border.
Thank you. Candidate.
Did you say Cruz?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear. I agree with Gary too and Keith about enforcing the laws. We've got to get a little bit more modern technology in there, but we also have too many visas. There are 85 of them. We have student visas overstaying their time as well. But we also have to make it more simple to get here. A lot of people want to cross that border because it takes too long and it costs too much. And the truth be told, we are spending $33 billion requesting $33 billion in Ukraine. And we can put some of that money towards updating our technology, shortening the timeframes, because we need these people to come back if we want to bring immigration back for our workforce. We have an issue with free trade, and we need these people to come back because we have students that are trying to ask for student debt to be refunded when we have nobody wants to work in a manufacturing place or work on construction sites. So we do need these people. We need to make it shorter. We need to make it quicker, but we need to be more secure and keep it very streamlined. It's very, very long-winded, and without the resources that are needed, it's going to continue to be that way.
Thank you. Question 8. Thank you for bringing it up, Candidate Cruz. Do you support canceling student debt? And if so, to what degree? We'll start with Candidate Pico.
I do not support canceling student debt. I paid my way through college. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. I paid off my student debt. I paid off my wife's college. We paid off both of our master's degrees. We paid our children's college. Our children paid their college. What we really need to do is to ensure that students are not given loans for education programs that are not going to actually generate a job. And we really need to control tuition increases. Tuition has increased over 7% a year for the last 30 years. Well, wages have increased 3%. Well, the CPI has increased 3%. Everything else is tracking normally. It's tuition that's gone through the roof and made it impossible for people to pay back their loans. So students need to look at other options, just like family members of mine have done. Look at community college, look at other options before they incur that debt. But once they take on that debt, they owe it to pay it back. It is not up to taxpayers to pay back their college funding.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
Absolutely, taxpayers should not be paying others' student loans. That's it, simple.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
No, I don't think we should forgive student loans. I think the tuition, I agree with Candidate Pico that the tuition is going through the roof, and that needs to be addressed. A lot of these large institutions have large endowments that they can use to offset some of those costs. Additionally, I do believe there's a gap in the education system. A lot of people are graduating high school and choosing not to go on to college but there's no place for them to go. So we need to fill that gap with more skilled training in the community through colleges, certifications, and job skills. Give them a place to go and an alternative to college.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
Yeah, I also believe taxpayers shouldn't do it, but that doesn't solve the problem. What I think the problem is that kids today have taken out loans that they can't pay back, that what, like candidate Pekow said, where degrees aren't paying the jobs. I think we also see, like I mentioned before, a lack of jobs in the trades. In manufacturing and construction alone throughout this country, there are 1.2 million vacancies. So why don't we do something similar to what we did in 2008, where if you transition your career, maybe we can modify your student loan, because I pay 1% on my student loan, but my sister-in-law pays 11%. So if she decided she wanted to change fields and come into the manufacturing sector or the warehousing sector in any position, we should be able to modify that loan to help fill a need, not only for us, but for them too. And that's what I believe should be the solution for this problem.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. We are becoming a nation of giveaway programs that we cannot sustain any longer. This is another example of that. I oppose giving the relief and canceling a debt. Now, some college has been oversold and it is too expensive. There are universities sitting on huge endowments that should be taxed if they're not going to lower the price of tuition. And those individuals that have been oversold the college degree and are having a difficult time paying back, and there are some considerable situations where they just don't have the ability to pay it back, there has to be a modification of these loans so that we do give people the opportunity to fully repay their debt. But we are a nation where we pay back our debts, and we should do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 9, and we'll start with candidate O'Shea. What specific regulations will you propose to help curb global warming and other environmental issues?
Well, I don't know if y'all remember, I love that commercial from a long time ago with the Indian chief with the teardrop in his eye on the commercials. And it was just keep it clean, keep our communities, keep the earth clean. As far as what they're trying to propose in Washington, D.C., you'll never beat Mother Nature. Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do. But we need to respect the land that we live on.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Yes, I would reinstitute the policies that support energy independence. I am pro oil and gas. I think we need to end the war on oil and gas. I think there are legacy laws that hurt the industry that we need to reevaluate. And I believe that we need to take a multi-pronged approach to our energy policies. And doing so will actually help benefit the environment without hurting the economy or hurting our national security, because 100% renewable that is currently being proposed is not optimal. We need to allow free markets to choose the best path forward.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
I have a great conversation about this with one of my best friends. Actually works at a plant down in Houston that separates oil. And one of the things that he said has changed since the Biden administration has taken over is we used to use this sweet oil, he called it, very thin, easy on the machines, good for the water. They have all these FDA regulations. They all have all these regulations in place where if the water level gets too high, they have to shut the plant down. Now they're buying this stuff from overseas. It's coming in. It's real gooey, gunky, very, very chocolatey, and it's damaging the machines. It's causing the water to be less safe. And we're shutting down our abilities to produce clean oil. So places like China and Russia can pollute the atmosphere with this stuff. So we have to take a stranglehold, a leadership role in creating energy for the world. Natural gas in northern regions because of the temperatures, and then reinvest in renewables. At some point, natural gas and oil will run out. I don't know if it'll be in our lifetimes, but at some point it will. So begin the seed processes and starting those renewable energies and try to create a blend that I think is really, really needed right now in the world.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. There's a short term and a long term. In the short term, we cannot forfeit our oil and gas industries. We have to support them. We've already seen the cost of losing our energy independence. We have to get back to being energy independent. We also have to have India and China join us. They are the big polluters. It isn't just America. And until they do, then America shouldn't be trying to carry this ball alone. In the long term, of course, let's invest in electricity, solar, and safe nuclear. But that is a long-term solution. Short term, we have to remain energy independent and support our gas. And long term, we have to look at electricity, solar, and nuclear, safe nuclear alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pico.
The climate is changing, and it has been since the Earth's beginning. As humans, we are dependent on the Earth for survival, and we have an interest in making sure we keep it livable and sustainable. Everyone that I know wants clean air, clean water, and a clean and healthy environment. However, we also want to live longer, healthier, and more comfortable lives that modern technology has allowed us to do. We need to focus on how America becomes more energy efficient and independent. Our country has been a leader in transitioning to a cleaner and healthier environment through private sector innovation. I support these efforts while still utilizing our full capabilities to become energy independent to protect our national security. Realistic energy policy includes fossil fuels, nuclear, geothermal, hydroelectric, solar, and likely hydrogen. America should not only be energy independent, but we should be the world's leading energy producer. This will bring manufacturing back to America rather than drive it to polluters like China, Russia, and India. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 10. And we'll start with candidate Conforti. What is your stance on criminal justice reform?
Well, criminal justice reform is a state and local issue. And as a Congresswoman, I would work through the DOJ to ensure that the programs that we have in place fully support law enforcement and provide training programs. I would also ensure that radical DAs that are like those currently in Cook County and Lake County will have to adhere to policies put forth by the DOJ that keeps criminals accountable. Otherwise, they would lose their funding.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
Yeah, so in studying this issue, we went back and looked at what had worked for other cities in the past. In 1996, in Richmond, Virginia, they had a similar circumstances we have here, a bad DA, high guns, and per capita ratio of murders. They called it Project Exile. Go look it up. It's on our website, actually. You can look up this. What it is, they partnered with the federal government. Anyone who got picked up with guns, they turned it into a federal crime and put them in prison for 5 years. I think an approach, at least in the short term, is responsible or necessary in this area because we have mall shootings in every major mall in this district. We have crime running through our streets. Down the street from my house, somebody got robbed their cars. I think people are sick and tired of it. They don't feel comfortable driving down the street at night anymore. And we have to have short-term solutions and partnerships with the federal government so that we can get this fixed until we get new leadership in the state and local levels.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. Criminal justice reform is a nice goal. However, what's happening now in Illinois is you're passing laws that are doing away with bail, allowing a huge increase in crime. Let me give you two examples. I was at Oak Brook Mall on December 23rd with my daughter and spent 3 hours in the basement of the Apple store because of guns going off and shootings at the Oak Brook Mall. In my village of Burr Ridge, and why I'm uniquely qualified to represent this district, which is both in DuPage and in Cook, we straddle, and one of our officers caught and apprehended a criminal. And what was the first thing the criminal said? What county am I in? And the officer said the wrong one, meaning DuPage. The people in Cook County should have the same ability to have their laws enforced. I would have the U.S. Attorney oversee what's going on in this state and make sure that we enforce our criminal laws. Thank you.
Candidate Pico.
Thank you. Everyone on this call knows that the rise in crime in the suburbs and in the 6th District is driven by Kim Foxx's version of criminal justice reform called the Catch and Release Program. As mayor, I've implemented solutions to address this problem. We implemented a targeted response unit that uses technology and data to proactively remove dangerous criminals off our streets before they commit a violent crime or property crime in Orland Park. We worked with our mall to implement a youth supervision program, and in 14 months, only one retail theft has occurred during this program. We also implemented a mobile response unit to address mental health issues and reduced involuntary committals by 35%, getting people the help they need rather than putting them in the criminal justice system. The results speak for themselves. We have the lowest crime in 27 years, the safest city in Illinois in 2020, the 8th safest small city in the country in 2021, and the lowest violent crime rate for towns our size in Illinois for 3 straight years. Other towns throughout the country could learn from our approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
I live in Oak Lawn, which is Cook County. I worked throughout the district though for 33 years. Yes, and I've been to all the police stations throughout, talking to the police officers and asking what they would want. They want to be supported. They're all for more training. The good cops do not want to be working with the inexperienced cops. And certain, they have their own certain ideals, which sometimes they have to question how they even got on the force. So there has to be a better vetting system to even get the officers on the force, and this would bring the community safer as well. But I would definitely I would talk more with the ones in charge at the police department to see what they need, more of what they need from the federal government as far as funding and that for their supplies. I mean, we do have fundraisers for bulletproof vests. I mean, I've even brought one down south they don't make as much as they do in Chicago. So just whatever we can do to help within reason, and locally they have to step up.
Thank you, Candidate O'Shea. Question 11, and we'll start with Candidate Cruz. What kinds of policies will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in our community?
Well, being a person of Hispanic descent, I think one thing that people lose track of is the fact that people just want to be judged based on what they're capable of doing. And I hear that all the time as people come to me. We probably one of the bigger walk away campaigns there is. We've spoken in front of thousands of people. And the issue is we just want to have an opportunity. So I think as long as we've continued to create opportunities in a capitalistic society, entrepreneurships, continue programs that promote capitalism, I think we can overcome this issue, especially when people say, I didn't get an opportunity for this, or I didn't get an opportunity for that. A lot of times I tell them, did you really work hard for that opportunity? And if you're working hard, they should be benefited with an opportunity. So for me, I would continue to create entrepreneurial opportunities for people of color like myself who are out here, not worried about what we look like, more worried about what we can do.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. I grew up, I did not grow up where I am today. As I said, I lived the American dream. I grew up in a very diverse area. As kids, we didn't see racial issues. We didn't see religious issues. And people just want to be who they are. I would promote exactly that on a positive level of people being judged on who they are and what they do. I'm against critical race theory. I think that's destructive of who we are today. We cannot keep making excuses for what happened in the past. We have to be positive and move forward. So that's my position on this subject. Thank you.
Candidate Pico.
We live in the greatest country in the world where everyone wants to come here because people want to be judged by their merit and what they do and how they work and how they live and their work ethic. And that's the America that I know. And I realize not everyone sees America that way. I think what we need to do is continue to work as we have since I was a kid, and things have improved over time. And we need to see our kids grow up to be like they are as kids. As Gary pointed out, kids don't see color. Kids just see kids. And it's a lot of times it's the adults trying to put all of these programs on them and things like CRT that make them start to see things as color. When we allow kids just to see each other for kids and grow up into adults, that's how we're going to see change. From an educational perspective, one of the things we can do is something that I saw in Arizona, which is the top 10, and I think they've expanded to the top 10% of each high school program, got tuition waivers to state universities. So that way, even if you're in a school where you're not getting as maybe as good of an education as in some other suburbs, you're still getting an opportunity to bring the best and brightest to college education.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What kinds of policies will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in our community?
Well, I've already been to school boards with the CRT, and I've been telling them it should not be, they should not be teaching it. I also fought the school boards on the mask mandates and are refusing the due process. I put my money where my mouth is. I was on the historical lawsuit with Tom DeVore and Judge Grishow that won. We sued Pritzker and Isby over that and won our due process to be restored, which the mandate was skirting around that. I spoke before Isby about issues in August 18th. I was down there in Springfield. As a matter of fact, I ran into Kim Fox while I was down there as well, and had a few words with her. I was polite, but I let her know what's happening is wrong. But yeah, we have to just love people for who they are, accept people for who they are. I am not for transgendering children, not for that at all. If you're an adult, do what you want.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Martin Luther King's phrase that we need to judge people by their character, not the color of their skin. We're all individuals and we should be celebrated as individuals, not as common and collective. And we need to provide opportunity for people to open small businesses if that's what they choose, to go to college if that's what they choose, or to start a trade if that's what they choose. So it needs to be a full scope approach to providing opportunity to people to pursue their American dream, because each of our dreams are different and we all need to be celebrated and encouraged along the path that we want to pursue.
Thank you. And now we'll go with our final question, I think. And that is what we'll start with candidate Grasso. What specific steps will you take to address inequalities facing women in the United States, including the enactment of the Equal Rights Amendment?
As someone who has a wife who is an accomplished person, my best friend, someone I have been with for 43 years. I have set an example, and I believe with our 5 sons, we have set an example that women, of course, are equal. I mean, I never see it as an issue around here at all. The Equal Rights Amendment to me is not necessary at this stage. I'm in a profession, the legal profession, where women were not part of it a couple of generations ago, but now very much part of it. I'm a champion of that. There are judges. We now have 3 Supreme Court judges that will be women. So I would continue to live the life I have lived and set the example that I have. And that is that men and women are equal. And I've never seen it any differently than that.
Thank you, Mr. Picow.
Thank you very much. Like Gary, my wife is also a professional. She's a teacher, has her master's degree, teaches math, and I've been very supportive of that my entire life. I flew F-15Es at a time when women were not allowed to fly in combat and were not allowed to fly fighters. And I actually was the first females that came through our training program. I helped train. So that has no bearing on whether or not they have the ability to do the job. And so what's important here is that we treat everybody equally. And I think we've come a long way towards that. And I think, and there are several laws already on the books, and we don't need more laws. One thing we definitely don't need is we do not need to allow men to compete in women's sports at any level. We have worked very hard to give women the right to do all of that and to expand those programs. And now we've seen those programs taken away by men. And that is unacceptable.
Thank you. Candidate O'Shea.
As far as equal rights, I also do not agree with men competing in women's sports. And I don't think women and men are equal. I think they should have equal opportunity. Men physically have upper body strength, women have lower body strength. And women, I think, are superior to men. We produce humans. And you may find that a little odd for me to say it in that way, but we are. I have 3 children. They are a blessing. They're miracles. And women have kept this civilization going. You wouldn't have a civilization without women. We need more women in Congress.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
And women are speaking up more. Women can now vote.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Women have taken the brunt of the COVID pandemic and also the sexualization movement that's sweeping the country today. They have been affected by it in ways where they've had to give up their careers, stay and become assistant teachers, as well as what's going on across college campuses with transgender men competing in women's sports. So I totally oppose that. I would work to promote women's healthcare, equal opportunity for women, equal pay for women, as well as trying to promote women's rights really across the board. I'm a professional woman, a businesswoman, and I completely support equal rights for women.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
Yeah, I agree with candidate O'Shea that women are superior to men. It's not a secret. I'm a mama's boy, and I'm proud of it. I wear it like a badge of honor. In addition to that, as far as the ERA, one of the provisions is, sexual harassment penalties. That should be increased. People are going to sexually harass, whether it's a woman sexually harassing another woman or a man sexually harassing a woman. That's unacceptable anymore in our society. I think women right now are at a verge where we need to create more entrepreneurship opportunities. I think America's future is built in the entrepreneurial stages, and women can just be as successful as any men can be. I have a little girl. I teach her that she can be anything that she puts her mind to, and I intend to make sure that happens when I get elected.
Thank you. And now we'll go with our closing statements, and we will start with Candidate Picow.
Thank you very much for having me and all of us tonight. You've heard all of the Republican candidates that showed up here tonight talk about the same issues. And the difference is on the key issues for voters is I've done it. When we're going to talk about defeating the Democratic machine, I've done it, won 2 elections against the Democratic machine. Talk about vets and foreign policy. I'm the only one with experience in that area. Talk about good government. As I pointed out, instituted term limits, eliminated pensions for elected officials, and lowered my own pay. Fiscal responsibility, took 14% of our operating budget, decreased it, lowered property tax rates by 30%, and also decreased debt by $50 million. And on crime, you heard what I said before about crime, about how we've done it. We've protected the people of Orland Park. So I have experience in all those areas. My experience as an F-15E instructor wizzo, a small business owner, and a mayor make me uniquely qualified to represent the 6th District in Congress. I've put people over politics as mayor of Orland Park, and I will put people over politics as your congressman in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Candidate O'Shea.
Hi, thank you again for inviting me, and it's good talking with all of you. What sets me apart from everybody is I'm a former Democrat. I was a conservative Democrat and switched parties in 2016. I relate to them. it is so imperative that we get their votes. And I am the bridge to bring their votes over. The Democrats that are on the fence, our country's at stake. We need somebody that understands both sides. And I do that. I also am a skilled negotiator. And I do bring people together. I've been meeting people face to face. A lot of people are going to these other parties and this and that. I'm face to face with the actual people on the street and going around the different towns and talking to the people. I ran in 2020. I'm running again now. I haven't stopped fighting. I was on the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee. Marie Newman gave one of the board members $50,000 grant. That one pushed to get me off the legislative committee. So this is also personal. But aside from that, I'm for the people. I haven't stopped in the last, since 2016 when I switched parties, fighting for what's right, fighting for our country.
Thank you. Candidate Conforti.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. In short, my background and experiences have uniquely positioned me to best represent the people of this district and turn it red in November. With my extensive knowledge in energy, healthcare, small business, employment markets, and economics, I won't have to rely on my team in Washington, D.C. to educate me on these legislative areas. I'll be able to intrinsically understand the legislation that is being proposed and will know how it's going to affect the people of the district. I'll be able to make better decisions as a result and know the best way to vote to benefit the people of my district. And I'll be able to propose meaningful legislation that will improve the lives of the people of my district and all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cruz.
My background comes from being an advocate, especially in 2020, working on the vote no on the progressive tax was one of the things I was very proud of. I went out on 2 commercials and a mailer for 4 million people. I stood with parents as we were fighting on school boards, including my own school board seat, stood up to the governor when I realized he was overstepping his boundaries. I've been to every rally that the people have gone to. I have been out on the doors, knocking on doors. I've knocked on 4,000 doors. We've reached 50,000 people so far in our movement, and we are the walk-away candidate. People who are ready to walk away from the Democrats are calling us, like they did when Marie Newman canceled a speaking engagement in front of 1,000 people. They called our campaign. So it's because for 3 reasons. It's because we're pro-police, pro-parent, and pro-union, and we're pro-America. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grasso.
Thank you. As I said from the beginning, I'm the only one that has actually done all of this in many sectors of government. We can't win this election just with Republican votes. And I have the best opportunity to bring independents and conservative Democrats over to beat Kasten and Marie Newman. Your opening question was about campaign funds. They will have the campaign funds. I will be able to compete with that and win this district. I have 10 years as a mayor, 6 years on the DuPage County Board, 4 years as 911 chairman, and 12 years on the Board of Health. Everywhere I've been, I have produced results. For example, as 911 chairman, as I said before, building 2 state-of-the-art facilities that kept people safe and saved $9 million. We kept all of our businesses open during the pandemic, resisted the governor's ability to try to shut us down, and saved jobs and saved our economy. I'm the best qualified with the best track record to win this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Your participation is now complete. Please stop your video and mute your audio. Our time is up for this evening's forum. Thank you for attending. We appreciate your participation, whether you are a candidate or a voter. For 100% nonpartisan election information, please go to the illinoisvoterguide.org, powered by the League of Women Voters of Illinois, and visit the local league's website posted on your screen, where you will find a recording of this forum and the information on future forums. Please remember to vote. It is essential to our freedom and to our country. Thank you very much. Good night.